Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be doing my first ever paint job on a Warhammer model. I've never done one of these before. I'm a little bit nervous, so let's see how it turns out. Oh yes, and just one more thing before we get into the video. If you enjoy what I'm doing here, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. And with all that out of the way, let's carry on to the video. Okay, so one of the first things you'll need to know if you're painting up a Games Workshop model or a Warhammer model is they come here on sprues, which are these little bits of plastic which they're all connected to the model because you have to build them all yourself. So what you'll need is a pair of snips or even a hobby knife, just so you can trim all the edges off so you can put these models together. So we just want to be grabbing them here, and you can see they've got nice areas where you can snip them off yourself to where they're safe. So you want to be just really careful, and these snips here are really good because they've got such a flat edge. I can snip right up to the actual model itself without having to worry about damage to the model. So we just have to do that, prime the model up, and then we'll be ready to start painting. So once we have the model all painted up and primed, what we're going to do is we're going to start off painting, and to do that what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some castle grey here. And I'm going to be starting off with the base. These Nighthaunt models that I have here already have a nice textured base on them and already have the scene played out, so all I have to do is paint it up. So we're not going to have to worry about that. So starting off with castle grey, we're going to be using it to, of course, be painting up everything that's completely covered in stone here. Since they're in a nice cemetery style base, there's going to be quite a lot of stone, so we just want to be covering over all of the stone we can get with that castle grey. And of course, when I primed this, I went with a nice white because I want it to be nice and light for an effect down the line. So we definitely want to make sure we prime it in a very light colour. Okay, so once that castle grey is completely dry, we're going to come in now with uniform grey, which is sort of a bluey greyish colour. And what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be dry brushing over the top of it. So the good thing to get it all out of the way out of this step, since we do have a nice textured base on here, is we want to get all this done, and then we're going to focus on the model just a little bit later on. So just getting everywhere with the stone is covered. Then now we have that uniform grey done, it's time to move on with ash grey, which is even lighter grey, and we're just going to be doing the exact same step we did with the uniform grey. It's a just dry brush over it, since we've got a lot of detail in that model, and it's going to really pick out all those raised bits and edges. I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on the edges so we get a little bit more of that natural highlight with that lighter colour that we've got. Okay, now I just decided that I want to do one more absolute highlight with the stonework, and I'm going to be using ivory to do this. So again, this is just the same step as we did with our ash grey. I want to bring it up just a little bit lighter, and I'm really more focusing on the edges here on the miniature. So that's all we have to do, is go around focusing on just the edges to really pick out all of that nice detail we've got on that base. Okay, now with all that stonework complete, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go in with some nuln oil now, and all we're going to be doing is we're going to be washing over everywhere we just did all that stonework. So we want to give it a nice overall coat, giving it a real good soaking so you can get right into all those cracks, and it's going to really bring out all those layers of dry brushing that we've done on the model here. So just being really focused in on the areas that the stonework is just applied onto the actual base itself. Okay, now with that wash completely dried, we're going to come in now with some charred brown. And what I'm going to do with the charred brown is I'm going to be using it to be painting up some of the dirt that we've got here, just on the base. As you can see here, there's sort of like a little dirt mound. So we want to be covering that all up with our charred brown. It's going to be a nice dark color, and making sure that we're being pretty precise now, especially since we've completed our stoneworking. So we want to be a little bit more careful where we're applying all of our paints, especially on the base at the moment. Okay, now with those dirt piles all done, we're going to come in now with some leather brown, and what we're going to be doing with those same dirt piles we just painted up in the charred brown is I'm just going to be using the leather brown with a very light dry brush over top of it to pick out all of those textures, because this base has a lot of nice textures on it, and you can really actually pick out all the little bumps and details on these little dirt mounds where the ghost is popping out of. So we just want to get them a nice good dry brushing. Okay, now with our dirt mounds finished painted up, what we're going to do now is come in with some agrax earthshade. And agrax earthshade, of course, is just going to be just going over top of those mounds that we've just painted in. So just giving them a nice overall coating and being very careful that we're not applying too much of that brown wash over all of our stonework we've got. We want to try to keep them separate so they really stand out from one another as well. Okay, now we've got that dirt completed. It's time to move on to our next area, which we're going to use some angel green to do it. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be picking out the little vines and stuff you can see here. You can see that this ghost has popped out of this grave, bursting out of its tombstone here, and there's all these dirt and vines coming out, and you can just see where I'm picking out all the little vines all over the place. There's quite a lot of them, so don't be afraid. And of course, we want to make sure we want to be not getting the paint anywhere we don't want it to be, so just being very careful where we're applying it. Okay, so now we have all those vines painted up. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some goblin green. And the goblin green we're going to be using to be painting up all the little leaves scattered about all over the space. As you can see, they're just nicely sculpted into the space. It's very, very detailed, so we're spending a lot of time on the space, and it's going to really come out and look nice at the end. So we just want to make sure we're picking out all these little leaves that are sculpted onto the base. Okay, now with all those leaves and vines picked out, it's time to come in with a wash, and we're going to use some green tone to do this. And all we're going to be doing is just applying it to the areas where we've placed all of our green already, and it's going to add some nice depth and more intenseness to those colors that we've gotten on those bits of green that we've got here, and it's going to really liven them up when they're all nice and dry. So just applying that to everywhere we've painted up in green so far. Okay, now with all that greenery completed, what we're going to be doing now is moving on with some skeleton bone. And what I'm going to be doing with the skeleton bone is we're going to, of course, be painting up all the bones. Now, on this base here, we've got a nice skull just sitting here, where obviously the ghost has popped out from. So we want to make sure we get that as well. And of course, we also want to paint the actual ghost monster himself, the night haunt. And we want to make sure we paint up all of his bones that he has on here. He also has a little ridge of bones just along his back too, so don't forget to pick that out while you're doing this step as well. Okay, now with all that bone area all picked out, what we're going to do now is come in with some grimoire purple. And the grimoire purple is just going to be used in one little spot here, and that's right here, just next to the skull we've painted up, is there's actually a little rose carved into the base, so I can't believe the sort of detail that we have on these bases. They're really nice, and the grimoire purple is going to really stick out amongst this as well. And you can see there's just another one over here as well, so don't forget to pick them out when you're doing the base, and it's going to separate out and add a little bit more color variety to our miniature as well. And then once all that purple is dry, we come back in with some charred brown now. And what I'm going to be doing with this charred brown is I'm going to be using it to paint up the handle of this nice long spear or polearm that he's wielding. Now, this is me not realizing when I should paint things, and I decided to go with this nice dark brown after the fact that we'd already used the brown to paint up the mounds of dirt on the base as well. So you can do this step at the exact same time. You don't have to forget about it like I did and come paint it later on. Okay, now we have that handle all painted up. Time to come in with some gunmetal now. And the gunmetal, of course, we're going to be using it to paint up our nice, strong, gnarly looking weapon that he's wielding, this nice spear. We want to be making sure we give a really good coating with that on the miniature. Now, these miniatures that I've brought, Night Haunt pack, comes in a pack of 4. So there's metal all over the miniatures, especially in a whole bunch of different places. So don't forget to apply this to all the miniatures. I'm painting them all up at once in the same color scheme. And then what we're going to be doing once that is complete is I'm going to come in now with some seraphim sepia. And the seraphim sepia, I'm going to be using it to apply over our bone color that we've got placed here. So all of our skeleton bone, everywhere that we're painting the skeleton bone, we'll be applying the seraphim sepia to that, and it's going to really add the definition into these nicely sculpted skulls and bones that are all over this miniature as well. Okay, now with all that wash completely dried, you can see we've got a nice amount of detail on here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come in with some nuln oil, and I'm going to be applying that to our middle areas, of course. So as you can see here, he's got his nice gnarly looking spear. We want to make sure we give that a good coverage with our nuln oil here, really making sure that we don't want it pooling everywhere, but we can get that nice shadow effect we want in our metallics. Okay, now with that nuln oil applied, time for some of the real magic that's going to help out. We're going to come in with some nihilakh oxide here, and this is going to be the real magic to our ghost looking, super ethereal looking. And the nihilakh oxide we're going to be applying to the robes of our our ghost, I should say, here. And I'm going to be just focusing it on the bottom half. He actually has 2 layers of the spectral ghosty effect, and I'm only going to be focusing more on the bottom half layer, and the top layer I'm going to be painting up separately. So just focusing with this nihilakh oxide, which is going to give this really neat effect and give this nice ethereal look that is. This paint is definitely used for painting up these types of miniatures and giving off this cool ghostly effect. So it's going to really help out in selling the effect that we want to go for on the miniatures here. So once that nihilakh oxide has completely dried, what we're going to do now is come in with some basalt grey. And this is a nice, very dark grey colour. And this is going to help contrast it against that nice ghostly colour that we've got with the nihilakh oxide. I think anyway that's the theme that I'm going for here, is I want this nice dark covered robes and then that nice ethereal nihilakh oxide colour on the bottom. So just being very, very careful now that we're getting it in all the places we want to. So I'm going for the nice shrouded hood top half of the spectralness here. Now you could also paint this entirely up as one spectral piece, but I want to keep it as 2 separate pieces. I want it to have a nice dark cloak with that nice spectral body underneath. So that's what I'm trying to go for here, and just being very careful with the basalt grey and trying to get it just in the spots where I need it to. Okay, now with all those rows painted up, you can see we have a nice difference here in between here. So coming in with some matte white now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be using it to dry brush just over the areas where we place that nihilakh oxide, because what I want to add a bit more spookiness to the ethereal effect, and to really pull off that spooky etherealness, just dry brushing over a little white is going to sort of ghost it up and look a little bit more like spectral mist rather than a very blue wash that we've got here. So this is going to be that little bit that helps it push it to that spooky ghost look. And now with all that dry brushed on, you can see we've got that nice ghostly effect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come in now with some nuln oil. And all I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be applying this just over the top area of our effect that we've got here, but that I've painted into these nice dark tattered robes, which is with the basalt grey. I'm just going to be just applying it there to darken up all that basalt grey, give it that more worn in look, and that's going to really help tie the piece together and separate it out a lot and deepen those shadows as well. So now we have all that completely painted up. What I'm going to be doing now is just coming in with some straight black, and all I'm going to be doing is just painting up the rim of the base. So giving that the nice coloured bit to finish off our edge. Now you could just paint this up in whatever style you want to paint up your army. I like to keep my bases nice and black and clean. It really just finishes off the whole miniature itself with that nice black lining. And with that base painted up, you can call the miniature completely done here, but I'm going to be adding on just one more effect, and that's what I'm going to be doing here, is we're using some of this effect paint, which is a dry rust, and all I'm doing is applying it as if it was a rusty sword, sort of just really dabbing it with a dry brush, really trying to get that random effect here. And you can see with that wash is dried in an unusual way, it's just going to help to sell it with this rusty effect on here as well. And there we have it with our nice rusted weapon, but I'm going to be doing one more detail just on top of that, and I'm going to be using shining silver to do this. And all I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be lining the edge of that blade to really make it look like that's the only bit of the blade that is used, and it's all nice and sharp. So I'm just small quick strokes, random looking, really trying to get the edges of the bristles of my brush on there as well to make it look like those are the only parts that are used and sharpened, and all the rest of the blade is old and crusty. And with that, your miniature will be complete. And with all that complete, we have now finished painting up our glaivewraith stalkers from the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Nighthaunt faction. And I'm really happy with the way they have turned out, considering this is my first time ever painting up a Games Workshop model, and they're so detailed and awesome. I can't wait to paint up some more. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys, whether you want to follow along, or you just enjoy watching me paint up some cool miniatures. But with all that out of the way, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.